Where's my legal assistant? I'm lost without her. Okay. All right, I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 6:31 PM. We'll take a moment of silence to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. She's here? Okay. The coordinator call the roll.
Ms. Jackson? Present. Mr. Rollins?
Here.
Mr. Scrivano?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Dr. Harner?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mrs. Powers? With 6 present, 1 absent, we have a quorum.
We do not have any media students here for helping us with the AV stuff, so we'll move right on to the time that we have set aside for the public hearing on the renewal of the charter for the Rockford CICS Charter School. We'll now call on those individuals who have submitted public comment cards seeking time to speak on this issue. Do they have time limits? It's two. There is a 2-minute time limit per speaker. We'll have the clock running to help you with that. And our first speaker will be Lindsay Olson, to be followed by Yvonne Yance. So, Lindsay? Can I have you hit there's a button there. There you go. Okay, now start over.
I'm Lindsay Olson.
Okay.
I have a student there, Aya Olson. This is our 2nd year there, and we absolutely love it.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that's great. That's all we need. Yvonne Yance, to be followed by Angelique Watson.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Yance. I have 4 grandchildren attending CICS school. They absolutely love it. They get up at 5 in the morning to get ready to attend the school. The teachers, the staff, excellent. My grandchildren came from Chicago. They love it here. Please renew their contract, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Angelique Watson, to be followed by Joe Sloan.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Angelique Watson, and I am the director, principal of CICS Jackson. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to stand before the RPS board and publicly thank you guys, first and foremost, for allowing us these past 5 years to be a school. This is my 3rd year with Jackson. Previously, I was a part of the RPS family. I was a teacher in RPS for 4 years. I love the students. I love the family. I love the staff members of CICS Jackson. I love it here at Rockford. I decided to stay here and give back to my community. This is where I got my education from 2nd grade all the way through undergrad, is where I received my education here in Rockford. So my heart is here with Rockford, with the families, with the community of Rockford. So I'm just standing before you asking you to please provide us with another opportunity to continue to service the students, the families, and the community of Rockford. So thank you.
Thank you, Angelique. Joe Sloan, to be followed by Katie Snavely.
Good evening, board members. My name is Joe Sloan. I am the instructional dean at CICS Jackson, part of the administrative team. Prior to that, I was a 2nd grade teacher at CICS Jackson. This is my 3rd year at the school. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity for us to be a part of the RPS system and work with the fine students of Rockford. It's definitely been a phenomenal experience these 3 years. I hope to have many more here with RPS. I'd say definitely the most rewarding part of our job is seeing the lives that we get to affect every day. We were just talking about 8th grade graduation coming up and the students who have been with Patriots and Jackson over all the years and how rewarding and fantastic that's been. And we just hope that we will have the opportunity to continue that for many years to come. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Katie Snavely, to be followed by Tanika Jones.
Hello, my name is Katie Snavely, and I have two nephews currently enrolled with CICS Jackson, and they are 10 and 13. And I would like to, well, my daughter is going to be in kindergarten. I've homeschooled before. So the reason why I wanted to get up and speak is because I see the difference in them. Going from Rockford Public Schools, special ed schools, to CICS Jackson, their mood has changed. The way they hold themselves, the way they talk to other people in the community. It's just all changed because of their school. Between my sister-in-law and the teachers, the communication is really great. The community feeling of it being a family, not just a school. Like tonight when I walked in, I was like, I'm part of the Jackson family now. Because it's a family, it's not just a school. So I want to thank you so much for having CICS Jackson, because now my daughter gets to be a part of that family.
Thank you. Tanika Jones, to be followed by Bob Campbell.
Good evening. My name is Tanika Jones, and I also would like to thank the board for allowing CICS Jackson to have my daughter have that opportunity. I had 3 children in CICS Jackson. Now I only have 1 third grader, and when she first started, she wasn't ready for school. But as the years gone by, because they are family orientated and they're willing to teach your child the way they need to be taught and taught, so she's comfortable now and enjoys it. And I'd like to thank you also.
And our final speaker then is Bob Campbell.
Good evening. My children have been at charter schools, magnet schools, the regular public schools, District 205, and private schools. And we are now in our 5th year at CICS, which means we've been there from the very beginning. We've been afforded a lot of opportunities as parents that we never experienced in any other school that we've been able to have our children at. We've been able to pull together programs for parents. We've been able to work with the teachers in ways that were not afforded to us in other school settings. My wife and I are parent representatives on the School Improvement Committee at CICS. We're able to interact regularly with the staff, help plan and develop ideas for the future. I recently brought a friend of mine who was a 30-year educator to the school to walk through the school and take a tour with Mr. Sloan. And she's working on putting together a program for 3rd through 5th graders that will allow the children to actually travel out of town and do performances in other states, which is something, again, that we've not been afforded at a school in the K through 8 range. I would encourage you to renew the charter again for another 5 years. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It's now time for any board member comments or questions. Are there any board members would like to ask? Ms.
I
McCullough?
just want to confirm this because I know that there might have been a question out there. The speakers right now are speaking on behalf of the public hearing for the renewal of the charter school. We will have a second opportunity for speakers who wanted just to address the board during the regular board opportunity, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I had one question for Ms. Watson or Mr. Sloan on academic achievement and your dreams for where you want to be with improving academic achievement at your school. Yep.
So our dreams and goals is definitely right now with the gap that we have with our students, with being at grade level. Our dream and goal right now is to just make sure that every student is functioning at or above grade level. And so I know we're working really, really hard at our school to put programs in place to really personalize learning for students to help close that gap. We have done like tremendous growth over the past couple years based on our NWA MAP testing. And so we celebrate that growth. Last year, we actually doubled in reading and in math. And so we really celebrated that, but we still have a huge gap to close among students. So we work really, really hard every single day, coming to the table every single day, thinking about what we need to do to make sure that students are growing and that that gap is closing. So for us, growth is not enough. We truly need to close the gap. So that's
Ms.
our
Jackson?
dream and goal.
So I do have a question. The last two charters that we approved, they actually gave a somewhat brief presentation or overview or a talk. Is that not what's going to take place tonight? I mean, I just heard public comments.
Mr. Weisman is
but-
going to give that. Dan, you want to answer that?
Yes, when we went through after last year and internally reviewed our process for last year, the presentations by the charters we felt didn't impact or have an impact on the specific abilities that the board has to renew or revoke a charter. And so in the executive summary that I'll review coming up, it does outline specific reasons why a charter may or may not be reviewed or renewed. And we determined internally that those presentations didn't add value to that process.
I think Ms. Jackson has another,
Did you had another question? Ms. McCullough?
since you're there. Can you speak a little bit to staff retention and what your percentages and numbers are like? You know, like last year to this year, or even the year before that, how many, and when I say staff, I'm looking at certified staff, teachers, how many you've retained, and what percentage you've had to rehire?
I would say from when I started, and this is my third year, that we pretty much have at least 75% of the staff that I started with. And when I started, I was a lead teacher, and then last year I was afforded the privilege and opportunity to be director of the school. So although they may serve in different capacities, some of them have moved on to leadership type positions, or maybe they're serving in a different grade level. I would say about 75% of those staff members have.
So how many teachers do you have teaching?
We have,
Not teachers as administrators or anything, but just in this classroom teaching?
in the classroom, so we have, and that's including our SPED teachers as well too? Or just our K-8 teachers?
Let's just say K-8.
K-8, so that's 18,
18, and of those, how many are new to the school this year?
I would, sorry, I'm just like
No,
doing
no,
the.
that's okay, and I'm
If
sort
you
of
don't
putting
mind,
you on
I'm
the
just like
spot, but.
Got to put them in their
going through,
rooms
right,
at the school.
Right,
going
right,
like by
right.
grade level. Let's see, 5 are new this year.
So 5 out of 18, okay. And then your average classroom size, the number of students?
Anywhere between 26 to 28 students in the classroom.
Okay. And is the school, are all the classrooms full? I mean, are there still opportunities for people to?
So the classrooms aren't full. Some of the classrooms and grade levels aren't full, but there'll be opportunity next year when seats open back up for students to be enrolled. So we're actually currently in our enrollment process now. So we
Sure.
do have families who are enrolling for the 2015-16 school year.
So we as a district have ongoing enrollment, obviously, all year long. Somebody moves into the district, they come in. Can somebody apply to your school mid-year if they move into the area and they decide they want to be in Jackson and not, you know, in their neighborhood school, for example?
So, Mike, if you,
She did that.
And you
Okay.
did that?
so,
Okay.
so we do have, depending on like the situation, we talk with CICS and depending on if it's a special
Obviously,
need
there'd have to
type
be
of-
seats in
Right.
that class grade, that grade
Right.
level available, but it's not, but that opportunity is there. I just,
Right,
Awesome.
it is there. Mhm.
okay, thank you so much, and I apologize for putting you on the spot. I just
No,
wanted
hey.
to kind of have a picture, because those are questions we asked of the other charter schools.
No problem.
Mr. Weisman, I think you'd like to probably have an opportunity to review your comments on charter renewal.
Yes, I can do that now, or I know we have an agenda item, and I can do it at either time. You tell
Do
me.
it now? Let's do it now. Okay.
Just to review the process that we went through, that we go through with all of our charters when they come up for renewal. CICS submitted their renewal application in a timely manner as their original charter indicated they needed to. That was right around the start of school this year. I think it was the 1st of September. The Accountability Department then, in partnership with a few members of the Curriculum Department, a member of the Operations Department, and a member of the Finance Department, went through that application. We also, and I think I've mentioned I have copies of it. If you have like a forklift, we can go upstairs and we can go get that, and you can take it home and read it. But to summarize that, they were in compliance with their charter agreement. Their application met all the needs that state code asks them to provide to us. We also went on a site visit to CICS and spent a day with them. We interviewed parents, teachers, students, board members, and administration. We also heard a presentation from the administrative team and then visited classrooms. We visited every single classroom at some point during that day. Not all of us, but every classroom was visited by at least 2 members of the team together. As part of the packet, they have their own auditing process that they need to go through and ask a third-party firm to come in and review their adherence to the contract, and those came back in compliance. I'll tell you the thing that is helpful to me and my department is that because they're a large organization, I think they have the ability to apply some resources to, I would call it an accountability department. I don't know exactly what they call it, but they do have 2 people. It's at least a team of 2. I am always working with a team of 2 that review with me on a regular basis documentation to make sure that they're in compliance. And so they have their own accountability department that works with me on a regular basis to review. So when a school board is reviewing a charter school and deciding whether or not to renew or to revoke, there are really 4 specific standards that a school board is looking at. The first is whether the charter has committed any material violation of the conditions or standards or procedures set forth in the charter contract. The second is whether the charter failed to meet or make reasonable progress towards achievement of pupil performance standards. The third is whether the charter failed to meet accepted standards of fiscal management. And the fourth is whether the charter violated any provision of law from which the school is not exempt. On numbers 1, 3, and 4, there were absolutely no concerns from the accountability department that we would provide to you to suggest that the contract should not be renewed. Under Section 2, I know I've had some questions about their academic achievement, specifically on the state assessments. You'll note in the executive summary that it does discuss or point to reference their changing of a management company or organization to address some of their instructional needs that they felt weren't being implemented the way they wanted them to be implemented years ago. And so they are using a different management company right now to impact the instruction in their classrooms. They also, over the years, have been very open with their student progress data. And although the state data does not show them meeting AYP on a regular basis, they do show through their MAP testing, which is a college and career readiness testing program that some of our schools use. Washington uses it, Marshall uses it, and Guilford uses it. That testing program shows students' growth over time, and their students meet growth over time. They have students that struggle to meet the AYP bar, but their instruction appears to be providing value to them and allowing their students to grow as expected according to Northwestern Educational Association that does the MAP testing. Our recommendation from the Accountability Department, from administration, is to renew the CICS CRSO charter for another 5 years. I know that we are still and will be over the next coming weeks finalizing some of the specifics on that contract, but there is a draft in your board docs, but our recommendation is to renew that for the upcoming 5 years.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here from your board by chance? Could you tell us the makeup of your board and the role they play in governance of the school?
Sure. So my name is Mike Bauer. I'm a member of CICS as well as a member of the board of CRCSO. So I'm the chief of staff for Chicago International Charter Schools. I work out of Chicago. The makeup of our board right now is that we have 4 board members. I'm one board member. We also have Nathan Bryant, who's been a community member here for a really long time. Julie Mitchell, who has also been a community member here for a while, who just joined our board. And we also have Jerry Jenkins, who is also from Chicago. And we travel out here on a regular basis for board meetings. And like, as far as the structure, I'm also the one that Dan works with in terms of the accountability portion. We do have a kind of an accountability compliance team, and we really do focus on that portion of maintaining governance and as far as the academic side, we also do have a director of academic, or chief of academic accountability, Natalie Naris, who comes out here on a regular basis from Chicago and works with the team, Angelique and Eric, to make sure that everything is moving along. He talked about MWEA scores, and that's something that we're very, very focused on is in terms of growing our students. NWEA uses a metric of 100%, meaning like the national average of growth. We set targets at 130% because we know that we need to that gap that Angelique talked about. We know that we need to close that. So we were very happy last year. Fall to winter growth was somewhere around 127% for the school. So we do think that we're focusing on the right areas. Academics, we make sure that compliance is met as well. But that's any other questions on that?
That's great.
I do.
Okay, Ms. McCullough?
So your board, according to the charter, is supposed to have how many?
The charter has 5. So we just lost one. One of the members of our board is now the Secretary of Education for Illinois, so left the board. So we're in the process of recruiting new board members.
And you just recruited the one from Chicago. Both of you work for CICS in Chicago.
No, that board member has been a longtime member of the board, but does not work for CICS. I'm the only one on the board that works for CICS.
Okay. But they live in Chicago. They're
Correct.
not a community member here.
No, there's 2 community.
2 are.
So 2 are community members. 2 are not community members.
Okay. Well, good luck. I hope you find somebody.
Yeah, thanks.
Ms. Jackson?
Is your board appointed?
When you say appointed,
Elected?
they're elected. Yes.
They're elected.
Yes.
What do your cycles run? So how long are the terms? For
3 years.
I think they're appointed. Isn't that correct, Mr. Wiesman?
Ask the question again, please.
The board positions there are appointed, aren't they?
I thought that our local board was appointed, but I'm voted on. So the local portion might be appointed. I was voted onto the board.
I see. Okay.
The other board members.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Not the public.
Correct. Not the public.
Okay, all right.
Appointed by the board. Elected by the board.
I see. Okay. All right. That clarifies that. Ms. Jackson, you had another question?
Yes, not for you, thank you.
Okay.
It's for Ms. Watson. So I actually had the opportunity to visit CICS. That was actually my first time going into Jackson, and so thank you for your hospitality.
Oh, you're welcome.
One of the things that I noted is that there is a high population of minority students, But I didn't really see that the staff, I'm talking particularly the teachers, reflected that. So that's something that I brought up and, you know, talked about whether or not there would be a plan in place to address that, so.
Would you like for me
If you
to
could
kind of
just
talk?
speak on, yes.
Definitely. So Ms. Jackson did bring that to our attention, which I knew that as well too. And so I just talked to Ms. Jackson about kind of our plan for moving forward to make sure that there's more representation of especially teachers. We do have a good percentage of African American staff members on board, but they're not necessarily serving in the capacity of a classroom teacher. And so what we've been doing alongside with Distinctive Schools, which is our management company, we have been attending a lot of job fairs recently and really being intentional about seeking out more staff members that represent the majority of our students that we have at CICS Jackson, which is really important for our students, you know, to see individuals and professionals of their race, you know, serving in the capacity of career teachers and administrative leaders. So that's our plan moving forward.
Let me just add this disclaimer. I know that we can't hire based on race, but I just think it's important that we, whenever we can, just try to ensure that there's diversity. So I just want to be clear that I'm not saying you have to hire based on, well, I know others, so I just want to be clear with that. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here and giving us your input. So this will be come up for our vote at our next board meeting on the 24th, I believe. So
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, and I will see you Friday.
Right,
Okay?
I'll see you on
Okay.
Friday. Have a good night,
All
everyone.
right, thank you. Okay, we will move on with our regular agenda. The recognition for the All-State Musical Festival has been pulled. So we are now at the petitions and communications portion of our meeting, when we invite the public to make comments. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the rights of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires that there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communication portion of our agenda. According to Board Policy 2.230, the board comments portion is limited to a total of 30 minutes. The board will not respond to comments or questions at this time. If it's appropriate, you'll be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. And we have limits of 2 minutes, and we only have one speaker tonight. So I will just go ahead and call Prophet Youssef to the microphone as our speaker for tonight. Thank you for being here.
Thank y'all for allowing me to be here. My name is Prophet Youssef. I'm a community activist, a 20-year veteran of the Naval Service. Did 3 tours in Vietnam. I'm a retired school teacher. What I want to speak about, why Johnny can't read. The reason why Johnny can't read, he hasn't been taught the right way to learn how to read. Commander Robert Williams, United States Navy, wrote a book called Phonology, May the 12th, 1966. English is at least 85% phonetically regular. And if breaking the code was stressed instead of reading comprehension, the initial stages of reading instruction, more students would experience success instead of failure in school. Commander Williams concluded in his research that heavy meaning emphasized eventually handicapped the beginning reader and found that a cold emphasis approach resulted in superior reading achievement in school. You can emphasize reading. 90% of our academics hinges upon reading. I require a book a week on top of all other English curriculum, or in self-contained classes on top of all other work. There were cries and moans the first 2 weeks or so, but because I would allow the students to read anything they wanted as long as it was a decent book, the idea was easy to sell. Reporting also was easy being done on 3x5 cards, handed in at the end of each month. Occasional reports were given orally to others in the class, and about once a month a book report was given as a topic of the weekly essay. Extra credit was given for extra books read. The average student can easily read more than 1 book per week, in addition to other work. The results of the practice are incredible. Up goes vocabulary, up goes reading comprehension, up goes interest in school, up goes the ability to write good sentences, up goes the psychosomatic ability to read fast and fast with more and more understanding, up goes the fund of knowledge acquired, up goes the ability to spell, up goes interest in all sorts of things, up goes students' confidence that they can achieve academic and very possible incomes, that lifetime interest which will lead them to the career they should enter. If you implement the book a week reading program, you can achieve amazing results with your children, even if you are the world's worst possible teacher. For your children will far outpace whatever they could have achieved in the very best of former school. I could teach any kid in Rockford how to read within 2 weeks. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your input.
Mr. President, I have a question just now, because on the internet, on your website, says meeting start at 7. So we'll come here around 6:40. And actually, you move a meeting 30 minutes. You did not publish your public schedule change. You did not notify the citizen of Rockford. Can we have a comment card given to you now as a fair? Because this is you publish on your own website. Says meeting will start at 7. You move to 6:30. This is not democracy. Right? I'm asking you emergency petition, please.
It's not even an emergency. It's a legal right. We should be allowed to speak. We're citizens. So the card should have been out at the appropriate time. So everybody came here on time. We need the card.
On time. I can come to. May I approach to you?
Excuse me, no, sir. Step back, please. Step back behind the board. Step back, please. I'm asking you to step back.
The charter school hearing time was published for 6:30.
Okay.
Nobody was even aware of the meeting at 6:30 tonight.
Yo.
Nobody. They didn't even publish it on the website.
The notice went out?
It was not, it was not. It was not publicized.
What's that?
Mr. President,
Yes, yes.
can we
It's a
allow,
violation of
could
the
you
state
please,
law.
sir,
Hang
It's
on
a
one second.
violation
You
of
can-
state law.
could we please just allow the speakers who are asking
I
to
would be,
speak to
I would be
speak?
happy. Do we have,
Could
do
we
we
do
have some
that?
people who would like to speak to the board tonight for the petitions? I will have you come to the microphone now then. Please introduce yourself. I don't have a card for you, so if you would introduce yourself.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My name is L.C. Wilson. I'm a member of Winnebago County Board, and I just brought something that I want to direct, which pertains to what Prophet Musaf had said. District 205 needs to help increase the process of reading levels. Reading is a detriment to our future. It is kind of like the phrase, pay me now or pay me later. In a children's journey through life, examples, crime will increase and low to non-existent job skills. There should be a roadmap to reach back and try to get the ones that do not read well. Try and look at the 20% whom have reading issues, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the problems are generally caused by 20% of the, in this case, the students. Something needs to be done right now or in the very near future. What new ideas in the long-term goal are you reaching for? This should, in my opinion, be somewhere high on your list of things that the district needs to do. There is an excess of over 15,000 people in Rockford and Winnebago County that cannot read. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, go ahead. Just please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Maxwell Wang. I'm a former graduate of Auburn High School. So normally these board meetings, although granted, I don't think this really counts as a normal board meeting, but then you guys typically recognize a couple students and teachers. I think that's actually pretty nice. So today I'm going to talk about a couple people which I think are also pretty cool. George Carver, botanist, invented several hundred ways to use peanuts in the making of paints, gasoline, and of course, peanut butter. Daniel Williams, surgeon, performed the first successful open heart surgery. Henry Blair, engineer, invented the spark plug. Otis Boykin, engineer, invented a control unit for the artificial heart pacemaker. Emory Brown, neuroscientist, director of the most prestigious institute at the Harvard Medical School. Percy Julian, chemist, discovered several hundred ways to synthesize life-saving steroid drugs from soybeans. Do you know what all these have in common? African American. Each and every single one of them was an African American. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something that you may find to be very surprising. When it comes to math and science, the color of your skin does not matter. Now, look at our own school district. We have the whitest administration, but a student body that is predominantly African American. When I entered Auburn High School in 2010, I was joined by 814 other freshmen. In the end, only 299 of us graduated. Why? Maybe it has to do with the district's willingness to cut off funding for tutoring and instead give it to contractors to build new field houses because these contractors happen to be part of your white boys club. Or cut off funding for the copy machines so that teachers can't give out handouts because you guys prioritize building construction instead of education. I will ask that you guys do one thing. Do not abandon minorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Greer?
Reverend Anthony Greer. Again, we see an example of the behavior and the disorder and dysfunction of this district that we should not be proud of or even set examples for our children to see. But the question is, who would be the next principal at West, East, and Auburn? Moving the elementary principal from Welsh is not something that we will accept to do movable principals or moving chairs like principals. We have other assistants that are well capable of doing these jobs. So then what does that say about them, that they're only good enough to be an assistant and not a head? Your mission, vision, and views. What is curriculum alignment? When we have failed to identify the appropriate system to teach our children how to write in cursive or tell time. What is diversity? What is that in this district when we have over 27,000 students, 67% of them are color, 87% of the teaching population is white? What is the representation of those who we serve? Colored need balance as well. We pay out over $220,000 to a leader that has not even reached out to the minority, who haven't even came out to the ones that he serves, but yet and still we call him our leader. He makes statements such as, our bottom line is we want our kids to be ready to pursue their dreams after high school. What is a dream in this district other than white? Okay. Engaging families and communities to be vital partners in education. Statistics shows that the blacks in this community are not vital partners, with 59% of black males graduating from the school district. How is it that we allow teachers to make recommendations for administrators to be hired at West Middle School when we only have 4 black staff in that building as teachers? So will they be on the panel, or will they be omitted from the panel because of the skin color? My question tonight is, how do you feel when you go to sleep at night knowing your child can wake up and watch DirecTV when other children can't? How do you feel when your child can get the things that they need when our children come to a school that's supposed to be providing the things that they need to get better?
Thank you for your input. Okay. Next speaker.
My name is Henry. I know you're probably sick of seeing me. Feeling is mutual. But I just wanted to bring back to your attention. You don't have to take notes. There's not anything that you don't already know. But something was published this week that should bring to your attention. Forbes magazine released the top 10 least educated cities in America, and Rockford was number 3. So as you sit on the school board as members who are responsible for the education, all of you should be removed. And it is something to say that you think that you don't have to hear the voice of those who are speaking to you from statistics that clearly show that you don't care about black students. So how can you have 95% white teachers that are majority females when you have a 80% black and Latino population and there's nothing being done to reach out or to change the condition? It lets us know then that your mind state has not changed, that you are the same as those who came before you who enslaved our people. The mind state has not changed. So it's not physical slavery, but mentally, if our children don't stand a chance after they leave your schools, then they are still being made into tools and to slaves. So we have a condition now where you look at our children, and if only 28% of the children who graduate from Rockford schools are college ready, meaning that they have a 21 or higher on the ACT, well, out of that 28%, what is the percentage of black children out of that 28%? When you break down the actual number, it is deplorable of you to call yourself an educator or be in a position of one who is over the children. So this is just your friendly reminder that your seats are not a permanent thing, that the day is coming when you will not be able to sit in your seat over our children because you are failures when it comes to education. And since you don't want to change, then the change must come from outside since it won't come from within. Thank you for listening.
You know, racism has a footprint.
Could you introduce yourself for the...
Yakoya Muhammad, thank you.
Okay.
Racism has a footprint. We want to find out who's wearing the shoe. Tonight, we have extra security. I saw 4 police cars outside. I see an extra security personnel here. But when Dr. Sheffield was here, there was over 200 people here. We didn't have extra security. It appears to me that when black folks began to stand up and express their given rights, all of a sudden security is increased. All of a sudden police presence is increased. Why is that? Well, racism is not like in Oklahoma. Racism is not like in Ferguson where you just say the N-word. It is systematic. And the systematic thing that we're dealing with now is only 7% of black children are gifted in Renaissance. But triple that is in special ed. So what you're telling a black child is that they're not gifted, that they're not expected to be excellent, but yet they are expected to be special ed. And only 45% of those who go to special ed graduate or are college ready. We have a problem in this district that we talk solutions, but we don't prove solutions. Readiness Rock cannot be a slogan. It must be accountable. And the data has not shown us the accountability which we pretend to have. Now, we are going on school zones. Isn't it funny? A teacher can teach wherever they want to teach, but a student is now confined to the zone if it's a bad school or not. There's been 5 math teachers in the 6th grade at Kennedy. How will that child be prepared for math as they matriculate on? So this is telling us now that you want to look at people's address when it deals with sports, but have you checked any of the people in gifted and Montessori if they are qualified for the test that you prepped them for? So how dare you treat us like second-class citizens when you are public officials? So we're calling on you today. Don't just come and talk to us at public meeting. Don't do your shenanigans. Meet with us like men, meet with us like women, and let's all save our school district together.
Thank you. Anyone else? Allison?
I am Allison, and good evening, everyone. And so I'm just going to repeat an idea which I think everyone should be fully aware of. And so Larry Lessig, he's an American academic and political activist. He is also director of the Edmund J. Safra Center for Ethics at Harvard University, and he is additionally a Harvard law professor. And Professor Larry Lessig wrote that institutional corruption is the consequence of an influence that weakens the effectiveness of an institution, and it deviates its purpose. And the most common of such influences is money. He explained that this type of influence can be best explained by a compass. And so everyone knows that an arrow is supposed to point north, right? But then if you put a magnet right next to the compass, the needle starts to deviate and it leads people into the wrong direction that the perpetrator imposed to lead. And so when an institute is dominated by a certain power group, good people are forced to do bad things because of the influence of such power groups to ensure the political and economic success or even survival. Now, here we have a situation where money may have not been very nicely distributed. So teachers are starting to have to furnish their own classroom paper or even copier paper. At the same time, I see that so many contracts are just being pushed out. While you can just maybe, I don't know how much paper costs, but at least put some aside for something as simple as supplies and paper. Teachers should not have to be forced to provide it on their own self. Again, it's just all about the priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Anyone else that would like to speak? Not, thank you for your interest and your comments. Are there any board member comments at this time? Ms. Jackson.
It's a question. Do we really have extra security here tonight? We do? We don't? Okay.
Downstairs. 3 squad cars with a police officer downstairs.
So they're a little hidden, you see. Well, not technically hidden, but then hidden from this room.
All right, let's, any other board member? Mike, Mr. Connor?
Yep, I want to congratulate Jefferson High School's chess team. They ended the season undefeated. They were first in the Northern Illinois Chess League, and they were 34th out of 146 at the IHSA state tournament.
Great. Ms. McCullough?
I do want to apologize for the confusion on behalf of the board. The first half hour of the meeting was actually required publicly as a hearing for the charter school. It was not part of our regular agenda. And then I did look at the time when you started the regular agenda, which was at 7 o'clock. So if the cards were not out there, I mean, it's the same as usual. The cards should have been out there till 10 to 7. And if they weren't, we apologize, and we're glad you were able to speak. But that we are bound by law to have a separate hearing and a separate opportunity for those individuals to speak to the board on behalf of the charter school. So that's why it was divided into two separate open speaker sessions. So, thank you.
Any other board member comments? Not, we are now at the consent portion of our agenda, including the following consent items: the meeting minutes of February 24th, the purchase orders, payroll, accounts payable, contracts under 10,000, and travel, the reoccurring contracts for the PMA Financial Network, the Forecast 5 Analytics Program, the Streamline Consulting, the intergovernmental agreement by and between ISBE and Rockford Public School District, and the other consent items, including the school-wide Title I plans, the Memorandum of Understanding for Peer Assistance Review, and the Freedom of Information Log. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rollins. Are there any consent items that board members wish to have pulled? Ms. Jackson.
8, B, E, 9,
B and D, was that? Okay.
B, E,
Oh, B and E, okay.
9, A through D,
Okay, so all of 9.
10, E.
Okay. Any others? Now I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of the items not pulled.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 absent.
Thank you. I'll now take a motion and a second to approve item 8B, purchase orders.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Ms. Rollins. Any questions or discussion on 8B? Not, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the purchase orders.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent.
I'll now take a motion and a second for the approval of the contracts under 10,000, item 8E.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Dr. Harner. Any questions or discussion? Not, I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 8E.
Excuse me, Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
No.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Ms. Jackson, would you like 9 all done separately or together?
Together.
Together, okay. I'll now take a motion and a second then for the approval of the recurring contracts 9A through 9D.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Dr. Harner. Any question or discussion? Now I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of items 9A through D, the recurring contracts.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Harner?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson? Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent.
And I'll take a motion and a second for the approval of item 10B, the Memorandum of Understanding for the Peer Assistance Review Program.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Dr. Harner. Any questions or discussion? Ms. Jackson?
Was that presented to the board, and if not, did it not need to be, or?
Mr. Vosberg?
Go ahead. What's the question?
Was it presented to the board? Did it go through education? This is the PAR agreement with the REA,
MOU for
correct?
PAR, we did a presentation with the REA at Ed Committee, correct?
Okay, and I'm trying to find it. I had it in hard copy, but I thought the expenditure said that it was, I recall it saying it was not budgeted. Is that correct?
No, it is budgeted.
What's the price on that? It's the 200,000,
Well,
right? A little over?
those are estimates, total cost of about 215,000, I believe, are in the executive summary.
Okay, and are those costs being split with the REA, or how is that being cost sharing?
Those are district costs.
District
Some are in this year's budget and some are in next year's budget.
And then it says that, from what I recall, there are going to be 2 individuals serving as the PCTs, I believe that's.
Correct, park consultant teachers, there'll be 2.
Okay, and so, but it's only for tenured teachers. Is that what I recall or not?
The park consultant teacher will work with, a priority will be with tenured teachers. They will have a caseload of about 15 teachers each, and the priority will be given to teachers with tenure. However, they can work with any teacher in our district that's recommended for the program.
Okay, and so they'll remain teachers. So this is like a stipend position, correct, for the power teachers?
The PCTs, that's a full-time job, and they will receive a stipend on top of their normal teacher salary because they will work extended hours in the evening during the school year, and they'll have extended time in the summer to work as well.
Okay, and then professional development is at $20,000?
That's an estimate.
That's an estimate. And then the program design, that's an estimate as well.
Those are actual cost. The program design is actual cost. This is a collaborative process with the REA, so we did have a facilitator from CEC, which the board has approved those contracts in the past. So that's a cost that's already been incurred, and that's the process to develop the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. McCullough?
This did come through Ed Committee. There was a full report. One of the things about those 2 consultants that are in the schools is that they can only serve in those positions for 3 years, and then they have to rotate back into the school. So it's not like once they're in that job that they stay there. And it was well received and lots of good questions and conversation. And it was presented by both the REA and the administration together to the group.
So this question may be for legal.
Jackson?
Thank you. Does this have an impact on how teachers are evaluated, or it doesn't have an impact in that way, right? Or I'm thinking in cases where they might be issued a notice to remedy. Is that what this is about or no?
Well, a notice to remedy is a disciplinary notice, but the remediation plan, it would have an impact on the evaluation mechanisms. It provides additional scrutiny as well as input from peers. So that's how this would work in essence. So they would have another set of eyes in seeing how teachers are performing in the classroom.
Because there is a panel, correct? I recall that there's going to be a panel that reviews, perhaps, I guess, if the teacher is put on a plan or remediation plan or something like that,
Correct, a remediation plan or a needs improvement plan. In the needs improvement plan, the peer teacher would be the second set of eyes to determine whether or not the teacher is successfully performing or not.
Okay. And when we do have some teachers that actually are assigned to teachers as well. We will still use them also?
The mentors,
yes. The mentors, yes.
Yes.
Any other questions? Now I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 10B, the Pearson's Assistance Review MOA, or MOU.
Dr. Harner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson? No. Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCullough?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent.
We are now at the closed session consent agenda items, including the HR organizational report and professional development report, and the closed session consent items for student discipline, in which expelled or suspended students are prohibited from being on school grounds and school-sponsored activities without the prior written permission of the principal. The expulsion for the following student, AEB-2, is held in abeyance contingent upon a conditional probation agreement for the remainder of this current school year and the first semester of next year, being executed on or before the next board meeting. The expulsion for the following student, TCR-6, is held in abeyance contingent upon a conditional probation agreement for the remainder of this school year, being executed on or before the next board meeting. And the following students, JMG-8, LAP-9, JMB-10, WRS-11, MNB-13, ILJ-14, MMC-15, and DDH-16, are expelled for the remainder of this school year and the first semester of next school year. And the following students have been granted a conditional probationary agreement: DMD 1, EAG 3, BPG 4, BDM 5, MRT 7, MBE 12, MMC 17. Is there a motion and a second to approve the closed session consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Dr. Harner. Are there any items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. Jackson?
12.
12. Okay. Any others? Okay. I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the items not pulled, the consent items not pulled.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson? Yes. Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Harner?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses and 1 no.
I'll now take a motion and a second for the approval of the closed session items number 12, the student discipline.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Dr. Harner. There's no discussion. I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of the student discipline items listed under number 12.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Harner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson? No. Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Jarrett.
Yes, I'd like to defer to Mr. Weisman to talk about park testing.
We have started park testing this week. We just want to give everybody an update. We're kind of in the middle of it. Haskell started last week, but the rest of our schools, the window opened up yesterday, and it goes for 20 days. I did ask for a copy. I think you should have had in your packets a copy of either the 5th grade math or the algebra math practice test, just if you were looking for something fun to do in the upcoming couple weeks.
Test our math skills.
Right. Some of the things you'll notice in there, there are a lot more what I would call, back when I took my tests as a youngin', word problems. We called them word problems back then, stories. There are more of those. This tests higher level thinking, critical thinking skills. There are also a lot of more opportunities when students are just kind of have multiple choices. They pick their, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time concentrating. They have to explain their answers in the tests, and so those get submitted and those get scored. So the tests really focus on higher level thinking, being able to explain how you got to answers. It's a little bit different than the types of tests we've taken in the past. Today, personally, I was at Marshall, who's one of our 8 schools that are doing online testing. I was at East, I was at Auburn, Spring Creek, and Eisenhower. I also spoke to Jefferson on the phone. Guilford is the one high school that hasn't started yet. In the window, schools can choose when they want to start their testing, and Guilford starts tomorrow. But out of 4 of our high schools, 3 have already started, and we've had real great activity with the students. Everybody's been really cooperative. The teachers have been very supportive. They worked hard. The administration that I've been speaking with, and as I visited them, have been working hard as the state's trying to do something for the first time that they haven't done before. So we are testing at 8 schools total online, and because the state allowed us to have a smaller number of students who are testing online, we're able to provide some real intense tech support people for those schools. So when I was at Marshall today, for example, we had 3 tech support people out there able to be there and help through the tech issues. I've told the story before. I'm going to tell it one more time. Every month I Skype with my mother in Cincinnati. She and I Skype on a Sunday. It's like the 3rd Sunday of every month usually. And every time we do that, I have to get on the phone with her right before we Skype and re-explain to her how to get onto the computer and get the Skype set up. I'm betting for the next handful of years, the first day of online testing, as we continue to move into this, is going to be like when I talked to my mother just right before. We'll have a day where we've got a lot of tech support going out to make sure things get going right, and we'll have to figure those out again every year fresh. But today was extremely smooth, at the schools that tested online yesterday and were in their second day today. So that's my report. I'm pleasantly surprised at how smooth things are going. We've been pretty stressed about the possible problems that could come up the first time we try something big like this, but so far so good. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to answer any questions about park testing this week.
Okay, Mr. Rollins.
Unless it's like an answer to the question.
Yeah, I had heard that things didn't go very smoothly on the first day.
Things did not go smoothly
and
on the
I'm a little
first day,
curious how
Marshall.
much of that is the state system, because it's an online system, and how much of that is on our end.
Great question. So yesterday, we had two different experiences. They were both middle school experiences. One was at Flynn and one was at Marshall. Marshall seemed to have the most issues, and there are some specific issues that were isolated at Marshall, and then issues that we had at both schools that we didn't see today. But what those were yesterday were there were really two things. One, in Flynn, we had wireless connectivity issues. Flynn, because it's a traditional school layout, they have a wireless access point in every classroom, which means there's fallover. So if an access point gets busy in one classroom, those devices can connect to the wireless access point to the left or to the right. Because of the setup in Marshall, that doesn't happen. The classrooms are arranged differently, and the overlay of those wireless access points didn't happen. So last night, after the teachers had all left, we had techs go in and add wireless access points to the schools, and we didn't have any connectivity issues today. One of the issues that we saw at both schools yesterday that was a significant problem, but the students learned it, and today we didn't have that issue hardly at all, is there is some security protocol. So that issue was ours. I own that 100%. I'm glad that we had some people stay late last night to fix that. One of the things that our students have to figure out is because of the security around an online test, anytime a student clicks outside of the browser, because they're taking the test in a browser setting, anytime they click outside of the browser, it bumps them out of the test. And some of the ways that happens are different in the live environment than they were in the test environment that we were able to practice in for the last couple weeks. Specifically, there wasn't a test environment for all the devices that we have. They didn't have a test environment for iPads. They weren't ready for it. But anytime a student tries to get out of the test nav, is what they call it, it bumps them out, and a teacher has to go into the back end and resume the test for them before the student can log back in. That's a learning curve in and of itself. Students are getting booted out. They don't know why. And then kind of the follow-up to that is there's about a 5-minute lag between the time that a student gets booted out until it shows up on the teacher's access point so that they can then click it, and then it gets back to the student so they can log in. And that was we hadn't tested that as much as we should. We didn't know there was going to be a 5-minute lag. It makes sense now that we think about it, but we weren't ready for that yesterday. Once teachers figured that out and our techs figured that out, I would encourage you to talk to some of the people that talked about the concerns yesterday and ask them how it went today, because today seemed to go extremely smoothly from my perspective in the schools that I visited. But yesterday was tough.
I'd actually also heard that there was more difficulty with the laptops than the desktops.
Yep.
Is that an issue that's been resolved, or is
So-
that something that's going to be an issue going forward? Because I'm just thinking down the road. I mean, if we're going to have to be doing this in future
Definitely.
years, we need to have the technology in place to be able to do it.
Definitely. The issues that we have with the laptops, one of them are that they work off the wireless. And so today, we feel like we've remedied that situation, at least with what we can see as far as the wireless. The desktops are hardwired, so they don't rely on the wireless, and so that's not as much of an issue. Specifically the two things that, as I talked with teachers, the principal, and the techs today, is the laptops. We haven't provided them with a mouse, and the ability for students to maneuver around. We all know it's easier to move around with a mouse than a trackpad, and with the trackpad, students are more often clicking outside of that window. Just because you have less maneuverability or agility with a trackpad. The screens are also smaller on the laptop, so it's a little bit harder to take. And for some reason, and we just haven't figured out why, and this is something that's our issue, is the kiosk mode that we have set up for the laptops isn't functioning the way it functioned in the test nav, or the test site and the live site. There is a really large area for them to click outside of to get booted out with a desktop. It's a really small area, and we have some setup issues that we need to correct on that end. But the plan moving forward is to fix that long term and figure out that specific coding issue and the image issue. But then we're finding we need to provide mice for them, and as much as possible tests in a desktop environment. Although there are some cons to that. You kick a classroom out of the lab sometimes. Sometimes the classrooms like to have that, and it's easier and there's some pros and cons, but it's definitely best for the kids to be testing on a desktop.
Mr. Connor?
Couple questions. Number one, in terms of the results from the testing, will you cover all the standard issues that we ran into? The example I've got is, I know when I went to some park training, they said that networking connectivity would be an issue potentially, particularly around bandwidth. There were some software issues. So I'm assuming that we'll get a summary of all those kinds of issues across the testing of the schools. So that's the first. So I assume we'll get a summary.
We haven't had the Java update issues that we saw with the last year when we did the pilot. We had a lot of schools do the pilot, and we've been worried about Java updates. We haven't had Java update issues. Part of that is because we have a techs out at every building to make sure the computers are updated. And we are using some software that Park provided to cache the tests on our servers. So the students aren't actually talking to the server in Nebraska or wherever it is. They're able to talk internally to our system. But we will provide that once the 2 weeks are up.
All right, and then the second part of that question is, will we get any kind of figures or stats on the experience statewide? On the application, I'm talking about the electronic, not the paper test.
I assume the state will provide something. I don't know what that will be or in what manner it will be. We are really excited internally about comparing the schools that took it online to the schools that didn't take it online. I think that'll be interesting to watch. But anything the state gives me, I'll be happy to pass on.
I think the second question then is, in terms of planning for next year, we're coming up to budget season, and I'm assuming that there'll be some plan around which schools, if not all of them, I truly don't know, are going to be targeted to take Park electronically. So I'm assuming that there's an implementation plan that we'll have to put together for that, reflected in the budget, and frankly, I wouldn't think that would be simple in terms of the implementation side.
It's not. It's very difficult. One of the reasons that it's so difficult is that because I think everybody's doing this for the first time, we're receiving information fairly late in the game. We were told just after Christmas which schools were going to test online, and they said these are the schools and the grades you have to test online. You don't have a choice. So they waited pretty far into the game to let us know that. And then about 3 weeks ago, they changed it again. And so it's been really, they changed which schools were going to test online and which weren't, which gave us some more freedom, which I think was positive. But it is, for many reasons, that alone, just we don't know where the target is, to be honest, on what the requirements are going to be. The paper pencil testing is the easiest way to go. We've been paper pencil testing since Adam and Eve, and everybody knows how to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Jarrett?
I do have one other item that I wanted to share with the group. We got some final results on our ACT prep program, some really encouraging news. I want to again thank Mr. Sunil Puri, First Midwest Group, along with a number of our teachers that contributed to this. In 2013, we started with the idea of having a Saturday prep program, and we had 128 students enroll over on Saturday mornings, 8 to noon. 89 completed, about a 69% completion rate. Last year, that went to 367 students enrolled, 140 completed 4, so there's a 38% completion rate. This year, they really got the incentives right, really did a good job of getting students involved. So 499 students enrolled, 392 completed at least 4. So we're talking about almost 25% of the junior class came in, and probably a little bit more of that, came in on 4 Saturdays to improve their ACT score. I thought that was really exciting. In the past years, and we'll have to calculate it this year as well, the average growth on that was between 3 and 4 points growth on the ACT. So 79% of the students in the program completed at least 4 prep sessions. So really applaud our students for giving up their Saturdays to better themselves. I really applaud our teachers for their teaching and their leadership. Dave Carson in the College and Career Readiness Department helped coordinate it. And Scott Dimke was a real key player in that. And then, of course, again, Mr. Sunil Puri and the First Midwest Group. Big success for our students, and I think we will see many students will see the benefits of that. One student, as an anecdote, last year had over 9 points growth as a result of taking part in the program from start to finish. That's really life-changing difference in the score in terms of what the student had for post-secondary options as a result of that. So really excited that it's really catching fire and students are participating in big numbers, and we hope to have even larger participation numbers next year. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Is there a cap on how many kids can do it, or anybody who signs up and comes can do it?
There's no
Is that how it
cap, and in
works?
fact, when students do this, they pay $20, but if a student can't afford it, there is a fund in order to cover that but the main idea to have the students pay on the front end is so that they have some ownership. But at the end of the sessions, they receive a $50 gift card on the back end. So if they complete 4 sessions, that's the incentive. Mr. Puri also provides Famous Dave's Barbecue, and that's a big hit with the kids. And it really works well. The students also receive a $30 ACT prep book. So altogether, that's probably about a $150 value for the students. And so the incentives are right, and the results are really, really good to date and getting even better this year.
Mr. Dotson, it sounds like we might need a recognition of Mr. Puri at a future board meeting for his efforts and cooperation in that project. So, any other questions for Dr. Jarrett? If not, we'll move on to the Education Committee. Ms. McCulloch.
The Education Committee has not met since the previous board meeting. Our next meeting will be the first Monday in April, which would be the 6th, in this room at 5:30, where we will be reviewing the changes to the Code of Conduct. And it's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Rollins, the Operations Committee report.
The Operations Committee met here in this room on Tuesday, March 3rd at 5:30 p.m. It was a light agenda. We looked at the additions, some plans and elevations for the additions that are being planned to start this summer at 5 of the elementary schools: Welsh, Westview, Hillman, Marsh, and Whitehead. The preparation work for those additions is being done by the architects. The plans are being finished. Those should be going out to bid, and hopefully we'll be awarding those contracts in April and May for work to begin this summer. The committee considered a request by the administration to amend our health, life, safety plans to add new boilers at Roosevelt High School and new windows at Marsh. The background there is that we just went out to sell health, life, safety bonds. The interest rate was much more favorable than what we had originally projected. So for the same tax levy, we were able to get about $2 million more. And the administration selected these 2 projects off of a list of deferred maintenance that we've got that we're trying to work down on. And the committee unanimously recommended approval of that to the board, and that shows up later on our agenda tonight. And then we also reviewed the results of this year's free or reduced lunch audit. Every year, the district is required by federal regulations to audit 3% of the applications for free or reduced lunch that are not direct certifications. A couple of statistics that were of note. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the number of our direct certifications went up significantly because the state revised its Medicaid eligibility formula, and which has a direct impact on the direct certifications. So the actual number of people audited then went down because so many more people were covered by the direct certification process. But within the people that were audited, we had fewer people who provided us with no information in response, and we had a much lower percentage of people who then got moved from free or reduced into denied. And that's my report.
And your next meeting is April?
Oh, sorry. Our next meeting is Tuesday, April 7th.
Okay. April 7th. Very good. The completion of the additions, Mr. Schmidt, what's the timing on the completion of that, I'm assuming is going to be staged and?
They'll be staged. Our goal is to get them all out to bid here in April and May, start construction in around June, and have them completed by the start of next school year. Actually, midsummer next year.
Okay. Dr. Harner, the Facility Plan Oversight Committee report.
The Facilities Plan Oversight Committee has not met since the last board meeting. We meet a week from today, March 17th at 7 p.m. in the Superintendent's Conference Room on the 4th floor.
What time is that, Ed?
7 p.m.
7 p.m., okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on to action items for tonight. Our first action item is the Autism Diagnostic Observation Scale program that Ms. Cyrus presented. Is there a motion and a second to approve this program?
So moved.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Rollins. Are there any questions or discussion? If not, I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 16A, the Autism Diagnostic Observation Scale.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Abstain.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Dr. Harner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeses, 1 abstain, and 1 absent.
Okay. Thank you. We are on to other business, new business, and agenda recommendations, and we already have had the CICS charter renewal presentation by Dr. Weisman. And Mr. Schmidt, you're up next with health, life, safety amendments for Roosevelt HVAC.
This is, as Mr. Rollins said, this was presented at the Operations Committee for life safety amendments for the additional funding that we have on the bond for the HVAC replacement at Roosevelt Center and window replacement for Marsh Elementary School. Based on the list that we have of potential of $16 million of additional deferred maintenance, these are the top 2 items that are next on the list that come up there. So we're looking at having these amendments approved by the Board of Education so we can start the process of correcting these issues.
Any discussion for Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Rollins.
I guess I never really asked the question, what's the timing on those 2 projects? I mean, we're just amending the health, life, safety because we've got the money. I mean, what's your just projection on what the timing is going to be?
It still would go, as you look at it, it still takes the process of once we approve it, the regional office has to approve it, the state board has to approve it. So that could be up to 3 months. So we won't start on that work until after that's approved. So this, looking at, it'll probably be 2016 work. We're going to try to tie this in there, if you look, because Marsh has the windows to tie this on the back end of the addition work. And then Roosevelt most definitely will be 2016 for that HVAC.
Are these projects that you would not want to do in the winter? You'd want to do these in the summer mostly?
Correct, because when we look at the HVAC work at Roosevelt, we'll be replacing the boiler systems and the controls and the building automation controls, the bumps, the pumps, and the boilers.
All right. Any other questions? If not, this will be presented at our March 24th board meeting for a vote. Attorney Holdley, you're up with a whole bunch of board policy revisions.
And this should go fairly quickly, since I'm sure you've all already scrutinized all of the policies. So
you took the test. I never brought it over.
So the first one is 2.140, that's communications to and from the board, and it aligns to the press policy with a few exceptions. I did incorporate in additional changes from the board members based upon your feedback. But the real change in the policy is to reflect state law, which requires the district to prominently post the email sites at which all of you can be reached at. And we already do post it on the website, but it states it now in policy. The next two are board policies 5.50 and 5.55, which are the drug-free and alcohol testing policies. In that, it reflects changes as a result of the Medical Cannabis Act. And just to make it perfectly clear, in that act, it is not permissible to either possess or use medical cannabis on school property or premises. So that's what it clears up in the policies. So neither students, staff, members of the public, board members, or anyone else may use or possess medical cannabis on district premises. Substitute teachers, that's board policy 5.220. That describes the statutory process permitting substitute teacher assignments in the event of an emergency. Currently, there are restrictions on the number of days substitute teachers may perform the services within any given classroom, and so the policy reflects that. Board policy 6.60 is a curriculum policy, and it essentially reflects additional mandates that students or teachers must impart to students. And so one, it deals with letting students know of the dangers of using heroin, child abuse prevention, subjects, as well as the U.S. history curriculum. So those are some of the major changes that are incorporated in that policy. Policy 6.300 is the graduation requirements. As you may recall, several years ago, you did change the graduation requirements from having 40 credits to 48 credits. And so now that all of those it's no longer necessary because we fully implemented that. So it's just making some cosmetic change to the policy. But the main change is, as a result of any statutory change, it deals with students who transfer in their senior year as a result that their parents are on active military duty. And what it does is give the district the obligation to ensure that those students have an opportunity to graduate. So try to do what you can to assist them in meeting the graduation requirements. 6.340 makes the changes from the ISATs to PARC, and so it reflects the statutory assessment and accountability measures that the state has imposed. 7.20 as well as 7.1 8.0 reflects some of the language changes in the bullying and harassment statutes. We've already met all of the requirements through the Student Code of Conduct, but this reflects now what IASB believes is the best language to incorporate in our policy. So those changes are made. 7.40 is dealing with homeschool students or non-public, non-graded students, and so it talks about when credits will be accepted and recorded as pass-fail. And similar kind of changes are in 7.50. They reflect changes to the Educational Opportunity for Military Act, which I just described as far as helping students transfer or meet the graduation requirements, in the event that they have to transfer during their senior year of school. 7.190 is student discipline, and that's a cosmetic change. It changes it from discipline code policy with student code of conduct, which is really what we have in effect here in our district. Policy 7.260 clarifies when it's appropriate to exempt a student from PE. Essentially, it's just medical or religious, and the medical excuse has to be from someone licensed under the Medical Practice Act. And 7.270 is a change as a result of a statute, and it defines the undesignated epinephrine auto-injectors. So that's included in the policy as allowable for students in our school and the methods for that. Happy to take any questions.
Mr. Rollins.
I can't remember if you talked about 5.55, but that's actually a different drug and alcohol policy, which has to do with testing. And I apologize, I'm actually just reading it now. And I'm a little bit concerned about the way it's been changed. So what it says now, what's going to say under the revisions is the district may require any employee, union or non-union, to submit to drug and/or alcohol screening in the event the administration has a reasonable suspicion that a district employee is under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol. But then we go on to define under the influence as being defined as being above the legal limits set forth in the Illinois Vehicle Code, which is what, 0.80? 0.08, I mean? 0.08? So in order to send somebody out for testing, you have to have a reasonable suspicion that they're going to blow over a 0.08?
Correct.
How are we ever going to meet that standard?
You have to have a reasonable suspicion.
That they're actually over 0.08?
Right, that they're above the legal limits.
Is that what we want? Is that required? Is that what's legally
No, it
required?
isn't, but we could draft it in a different way. Reasonable suspicion, and then job action would occur if they're above the legal limit, at or above the legal limit.
And we only would take action against somebody if they're over the legal limit?
That would be correct, unless you have a desire to do it otherwise. For example, if you are utilizing marijuana, if you're driving, or the legal limit, it's anything above 0. So if you have anything in your system, it's above 0, so.
I deal in a different world, but in my world, you know, if you show any alcohol once you've been tested,
so it would be
you
0.
take action.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, Mr. Scrivano, and your system.
That would be true.
You know, we don't rely on whether or not you're too drunk to drive to say whether or not you can do your job.
Okay.
So I guess I'd ask us to think about that one.
Okay, yeah, there's no criteria right now, so this would be setting a criteria. So I would, as always, be more than happy to accept any input from the board on what their policy looks like.
I'll just, as a follow-up, I'll just ask, you know, don't we have resources through the association dues that we pay for school boards, for policy drafts or samples or whatever?
They did not include anything with a specific limit. So this was it was the attempt to identify a limit that would be unacceptable.
Ms. Jackson, were you next?
Yes, I have a question about its board policy 2.140. So the statute changes in the IASB press policy. Was that simply that we needed to put a link on the homepage, or were they more in depth?
It was more in-depth. The IASB suggested things that were more in line with governance, on what they viewed as best practice in governance, such as, for example, making sure that all of the board's communication goes through the superintendent. That was one where the superintendent and different board members provided feedback indicating that they felt it was working fine the way it is currently, where they may reach out to another board member, but everybody believed it was necessary to keep the superintendent in the loop in those communications. And so that's really those are governance issues that you all have to work out, but, and I think we made all of those changes that had been requested.
Okay, and so the part is taken out that says staff members may contact any board member. So does that mean they're prohibited since that's been stricken? Am I reading a different policy? Is this 2.140? In the version that I have.
It's still in there, it just is rewritten a little bit more, so it's still in there where if contacted individually, board members may refer the person to the appropriate level of authority, except in unusual situations, board members' questions or communications to staff or about programs will either be channeled through the superintendent's office, or board members will keep the superintendent informed of such questions or communications. And then the rest of it just reflects your duty of office, which is to ensure that you have the fiduciary duty to your constituents and to the school district. So it doesn't prohibit you from contacting individual staff members?
No, staff members from contacting us, I'm
Oh.
not concerned about.
Oh, that never, yeah, no. We can't do that anyways.
So the part that's stricken here, you're saying has been rewritten into the paragraph above it? Because it specifically speaks and says staff members may contact board members to discuss any school-related matter, and board members may initiate discussion on school-related matters. That's all been stricken, and so you're saying it's been rewritten into the paragraph above it?
Yeah, it's implicit in that where it talks about then what you would do with those communications. And the same with down below where it talks about that you can use other forms of communications for, I'm sorry, you shouldn't use it for discussing board business. I'm sorry, so it incorporates that change too, so you shouldn't discuss board business, but that would be the same prohibition under the Open Meetings Act. So, but it doesn't prevent or in any way prohibit individual constituents from contacting board members. In fact, it requires us to post your emails and email addresses prominently on the board website so that they may contact you.
Okay, Dr. Hunter?
So to jump off Mr. Rollins' question with respect to the medical marijuana, it's prohibited on school grounds or usage in school, but if you use it at home before you come and you get dropped off at school because you're maybe not supposed to drive, are you allowed to have it in your system? And
No, the legal limit is 0. As far as if you were driving a vehicle, it would be 0.
okay. And then my other one relates to the tobacco prohibition. Does that relate, because I know the Code of Conduct added, or one of the suggestions was adding electronic cigarettes and I don't know what all the other things are called, but related to that stuff. Is that somehow maybe that's included in here and I just didn't realize it, or should it be?
If this really deals with employees as far as 5.50. If you wish to also prohibit electronic
We would have to decide to
Yes.
include it, okay.
Mr. Connor?
On 6.340, a couple questions. In your number 1 on after that at a minimum statement, and it talks about administering park, and then it says and/or any other appropriate assessment methods, et cetera. Is that really an or? Because I thought park was required. Shouldn't that be and? Because it wouldn't be or. If park is required right now.
Park is required, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there would be other state assessments that would be required, so it could be or.
Could change, I mean.
So is that the idea that in case we went away from the park standard, is that the
Correct.
idea?
Correct.
Okay.
If I may, there are some students that, because of their IEP, take a test other than park. There's a different test. But it
Okay,
does
so
exist.
the or, all right, so the or is legit. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, that's the way it was intended to be read.
Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Jackson? Okay, all right. These will come for our vote on March 24th board meeting. Are there any other new business items or agenda recommendations? If not, I'll take a motion for
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 8:04 PM.